I was away from my home for some time, so I left my business with my sister so she could be in charge of it. But when I returned, I found out my family sold my business. Well, you know what I'm going to do about that? They think that I'm just going to roll over and say, you know what, it's okay, I'll start a new one. No. I poured my blood, sweat, and tears into that business, and I'll be darned if I allow somebody to just come in and take all the money. I'm going to do something crazy. Growing up in a toxic environment's never an easy feat. I believe it contributes negatively to a person's growth, although I would love to think that I'm an exception to this. A toxic environment can be one's community, street, city, surrounding, or even family. In my case, it was the last option. As far as I can remember, I've always had to pick up after everyone else, including my parents. I was forced to grow up too fast and take on responsibilities that were much too heavy for me. But then I got better at managing everyone and everything until my parents separated and divorced. I know you might be assuming from my choice of words that I might be an only child. Well, that is very much incorrect. I do have a brother, albeit a not so bright one. Alan probably wanted to be an only child, but unfortunately for him, I was born 4 years later. And he kind of despised me for that. This is at least what I think is the reason why my brother never trusted me or treated me nicely. Well, I wish I could make up excuses for why my parents neglected me so much, or why they seemed to love my brother more than me, but I just can't. So, I assumed it was probably because they never planned to have me. Maybe they wanted one child, and I just mistakenly happened. I feel like I had to do a lot of things alone that subconsciously I never even associated myself with the only sibling I had. We never played together or had the same routine, or even ate together. We went to the same school, but Alan spent a great deal of time avoiding me like a plague. So, in summary, we were not close. But luckily, I had friends, healthy ones, and Daphne was my best friend. She had the easiest smiles and always listened to whatever I had to say, no matter how dumb or inconsequential it sounded, and she also spoke to me nicely. No one in my family ever spoke to me nicely. They seldomly spoke to me at all. Between me and my brother, I was the one who a lot was always expected from. I had to learn how to do everything right and control my temper and my complaints. I was the practical one, even though I was younger. And it does not just stem from the fact that he never helped with anything around the house. There was also the fact that my parents practically doted on him. Even though he had a good 4 years on me in age, I used to stare unbelievably while my mom babied him and treated him like a prince, while I had to start doing the dishes when I turned 5 years of age. So, things got progressively worse as we grew older. My mom would always take his side whenever we got into a spat, and no matter who was right, it got to the point where he would lay claims on my stuff and my mom would just tell me to leave them for him. The worst was when he started accusing me of his mistakes and my mom would believe anything he said. I can't even count the number of times I was told to the face, face the wall for being a brat. My dad was not any better. He always regulated between not giving a damn about anything that happened in the house or completely going along with whatever my mom did. It was like they were one big happy family, and I was just an unwanted intruder. Until the divorce. Ironically, I received the news of their legal separation the same day I got offered a scholarship to study at Harvard. I had just celebrated my birthday the day before, so I felt it was like a birthday and a consolation gift at the same time. I was happy. So happy I was practically bouncing up the stairs to go break the news to my nonchalant family. I was finally going to be free from their drama. When my mom told me the news that my father had already moved out before I came in, I didn't bother to act too surprised. So I sensed the separation coming a month ago, although I did not think that they would have the heart to go through with it. Well, I packed up my stuff, off I went to Massachusetts. I purposely sought the scholarship from them because I genuinely wanted to be miles away from my family. My brother was initially in the military, and while he was there, I started up a small-scale business that would later become successful enough for me to save money. Save enough money that I could use to support myself in school. So, I began hand-sewing doll dresses for our neighbors' daughters, for free at first, until they began telling all their neighbors' daughters and all their friends. It was a rich neighborhood, so I decided to earn from it. From there, I began supplying other retail stores outside the town. And when orders began to get out of hand, I recruited my best friend Daphne to help. We hired 2 more girls a few months later, and it was to them I had left the business to while I left for school. Anyways, Alan dropped out of the force a year later under the guise of wanting to take care of the family business. So, due to the divorce, the family business kinda stayed unmanaged for a while, to be honest with you. I was busy controlling my own business, so I could not be much of a help. Yeah, so my father retired totally from running it and left most of the management to Mom. But then before I knew what was happening, I heard the business has been sold off permanently. Well, that was a real shocker to me because I did not think there was anything wrong with the business that I required it to be sold. It just needed to be managed, but my opinions were irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. Besides, my dad did not seem to be bothered, so why would I? At least my investment was thriving, so... My brother, who was initially in the military, had dropped out a year later under the guise of wanting to take care of the family business. So, naturally, when I heard the business has been sold, I wondered exactly what he had been managing. My mom invariably became unemployed after the whole thing while living off the money they made from selling the business. I didn't really give much thought to it as I was focused on keeping myself in school and getting the degree. Just a few months later, my brother calls me. An act which in itself was already a strange occurrence because Alan never calls me, not in the full year that I've been at Harvard. But the reason for him to contact us was way even more bizarre. He said he needed my help to sue our father for refusing to give him our grandparents' house, and that I was duty-bound to help him due to this, because I was part of the reason our family had problems anyways. So, therefore, I have to have a hand-in-hand at fixing it. I wonder how he thought this crap would work on me. Now, let me break it down, guys. After our grandpa died, my grandmother moved in with us for a while, so there were very huge eccentric manor house left inhabitable. I overheard her mentioning to our dad that she was going to leave the house for the children. She never specifically said if it was for Alan, but I'm guessing he just assumed it was, since he knew that he was the family's favorite. So, I didn't know the reason our father was refusing to give him the house, and I told him so. I told him I was not interested in helping him out either. He got seriously upset and went on a call and called me all sorts of names. Well, anyways, guys, he accused me of being contributing part of why our family broke apart in the first place, which was strange because we both know they divorced because of their unresolvable differences. After a few minutes of bickering, I ended the call with him and contacted our father. I asked him why Alan thought he would not be getting the house anymore, and he explained that after the divorce, he had to move in there and that he could possibly give Alan total access and control of a house he currently lived in. I didn't think Alan wanted the house immediately, and I told my father. He said I should not worry about my brother and just to focus on my studies. That would be the last time I heard from him, as he suddenly just disappeared from existence with no traces. I don't know what happened to him or where he went, but his phone were all disconnected, and none of the messages were ever returned. I had an exam coming up, so I worked hard to push all this drama aside. I needed concrete evidence, so I went to airplane mode on everyone, and everything except my books. I refused to take any calls or messages for a few days leading up to the exams, and also, a silly part of me did not want to deal with my family issues just yet, and even though they kept swirling in my head without any prompts, I hoped before I went back to using my phone again, everything would have magically gone back to normal. If only life were that easy. I still have not heard from my dad, though, and I don't know what's wrong. Even though he was never particularly warm to me, I still feel like he's a part of my life, and I'm worried about him. Do you guys have any suggestions as to what might have happened to him, or what should I do? What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So, there is multiple updates for this story, and if you think it's a crazy story so far, I'm telling you, things are about to heat up. If you are new to the channel, take a second, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for supporting the channel, and guys, let's jump into update number 1. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the comments. Someone suggested I look into whether these are my real parents and family. Well, that's funny. I don't know for sure, and honestly, I don't want to find out. It could be because I'm scared you might be right and I'm not sure I'm ready for the truth yet. So yes, they are my family. The only one I've ever had. I finished my exams and a lot has happened. First of all, I don't think I can file a missing persons report from here. My mom and brother are more suitable to do it, so I'll have to wait till I get home after rounding up a few things. Secondly, just 3 days ago, I got a call from my mother complaining about her rent being due. She said she needed some money because the owner was threatening to throw her out if she did not pay up soon. I thought the proceeds that she made from selling off the family business would be, put to good use. But it wasn't, since she's asking for help with rent now. She sounded exasperated because, according to her, there's a threat of eviction from the house owner. I told her to just move into our grandparents' house, but she couldn't. She couldn't do that since it was temporary our dad's property and she did not want to risk bumping into him. Daphne left. She moved to Toronto for her grad stories. And, so she left the overall management of my business to my mom. I was shocked and a bit scared when she told me this, but I did not want her to think I didn't trust my mom, even though that was the case. So I just wished her well and ended the call. After all, I was going home in a few weeks, so no need to panic. I could not have been more wrong. My mom's been trying to emotionally blackmail me into giving her money for her rent by saying I owed her by helping me get the first student loan, which I've been working very hard to pay up, by the way. Aside from my Harvard scholarship, I decided to take a few extra classes in fashion and design, but my scholarship, it doesn't cover those extra expenses, which is why I even reached out to my mom in the first place. She said that she had to pull some strings for things to happen, but she did not even have to go that far. I was already planning on how to help her settle the rent. That was before I heard the news. My brother had sold off my business, and I know very well that my mom was in on the action because Daphne had left the managerial position of the business to her until I got back. Well, I'm telling you guys all of this right now, and I was furious. I was so angry I was practically seeing red. I somehow managed to calm down enough to ask him why and how much he sold the business for. He told me he had to because Mom had a lot of bills to pay, so I just automatically assumed he was referring to her rent. Well, I was wrong again because my mom was still being threatened with eviction. So what the heck did they do with all the money that they made from selling my whole life's work and effort? And at what cost? A meager sum that wasn't even half of what the store was worth. I did not know what to do right now. The only clear thing in my head is that I'm going home. What I'm going to do when I get there is not clear to me yet. Also, I asked my mom if she knew about Alan's actions, and for confirmation, of course, she said yes. Then proceeds to explain to me how it was not my brother's fault that they were having a hard time, and that he had not done anything wrong by doing what was best for the family. He practically took the legal papers of my business and used it to sell it without my permission. Guys, what should I do? Update number 2. Hello everyone, it's been a really rough week for me. I've finally been able to finish my schoolwork and I'll be leaving for home in the next few days. Anyways, the last update was kind of a cliffhanger because there were some questions I did not know the answers to yet. Well, I do now. My mom, she told me that she had let Alan sell the store because he told her he was going to use the proceeds to settle her rent. I don't know how true this is, and I don't know if I should believe her, but that's a fair explanation, right? Because now I would have to assume that she was deceived by him. Well, that's wrong according to Alan because he claims that her mom knew about the reason well enough behind his actions and that she knew the main reason he sold off my business was not because he wanted to make sure she wasn't evicted. So I went on to ask him what he had done with the money then. Everyone, my brother Alan, sold off my business for way less than it's worth, and he used the money to settle, quote, a few guys he owed. Translation: he used it to settle his dealers because they would have hurt or possibly killed him if he didn't. Well, why I have to bear the full brunt of my older brother's bad decisions is what I don't quite understand. Why the people who were supposed to be protecting me from him are not. It's also what I can't explain. I feel like my brother goes ahead to eat a whole lot of crap and then I have to suffer the indigestion. See, after Alan left the military, he started using. Or maybe he started while he was there, I don't know. But because our parents never really saw anything bad in the way how he acted, They never really firmly called him out on his use, or even told him to stop. I, on the other hand, thought it was something manageable and affordable, and I was wrong again. I was wondering about so many things. See, I thought it was just something he could casually stop if he wanted to, but my brother was already too addicted and too far gone, so he kept borrowing money to fuel his lifestyle until he could not pay them up anymore. That was the part of the reason he sold off the family business, and then mine. The worst part about all this is my mom's reaction to it all. Not like I expected any differently from her, but I certainly was not expecting her to be boldly defending this madness with, quote, "he needed the money to stay alive." Those people would have killed him if he did not pay, like that's supposed to be my fault. She's even still telling me about her rent, like I'm supposed to magically spawn out the money, like she and her son had not just done me dirty. I've spent all my life being the last option and trying to do things for myself, and they keep tearing me down. Like, aren't they aware of how much it hurts my feelings? Or perhaps they don't think that I even have feelings at all. They are my family, but I don't think they've done anything good for me. Well, I don't owe them anything. Update number 3. Hey guys, I'm finally back home. I want to thank you for the encouraging comments and for those asking for updates about my dad. I haven't heard anything from him yet about it, but I have decided not to file the missing persons report. I contacted some of his close friends, and they all seem to be intentionally tight-lipped about anything concerning him, so maybe he doesn't want to be found. And that's okay. He hasn't been a great part of my life anyways, and aside from this, I have both good news and bad news for you guys. I was able to find out the people my brother sold my store to. And yeah, I was able to convince them to resell it back to me for twice the amount. Thank goodness for my savings. They were initially reluctant, but I told them I was not aware of my brother's plans until he executed it. I think that helped loosen them up. I was going to use the rest of the money to settle my mom's mortgage, but after giving it some thought, I changed my mind. Call me heartless, but that woman does not deserve anything from me. Choosing not to help her is not going to benefit me in any major way, but I'd give me, a temporary sense of satisfaction. I want her to sort it out herself. She never cared about me, so why would I do the same for her? Anyways, the bad news is that I got into a fight with my brother. He slapped my face because I told him he needed psychological help. He didn't hit me because I was wrong or disrespectful. He did it because he felt triggered by my words, because they're true. He needs to go get some help and make something good out of his life, rather than causing so much trouble for everyone and ruining his organs. He left the house about 5 hours ago after taking a $100 bill from my purse. I'm alright. I guess I think this whole altercation was the eye-opener my mom needed to see what a monster she's been raising. She's been defending him ever since, but today she took my side, and my gosh, it felt so good. My brother and I, we never saw eye to eye while growing up, but he has certainly never hit me before. This was a first, and ironically, this is exactly the only thing that could snap my mom out of a love daze that she saw in him. She's beginning to see things from my point of view, and support my decisions, including the one I made to have Alan arrested. She told me to have him arrested, and she also agreed to testify my claim of theft by deception against him, in the sense that he lied to our mom about what he needed the money for, and had instead used it for something else. She's trying to make amends right now, but surprisingly, I don't care. She had the chance to love me all my life when I really needed it. She didn't. Now it doesn't matter to me anymore. I'll be going back to Massachusetts to finish my studies. I've already insured my business and left it in the care of a trusted manager. Hopefully this time, nobody will try to sell off my property without my consent. My brother will be going to court soon, and that's part of the things that still keep me go around. I want to be there while he's being tried and convicted. I do feel a little bit guilty because a tiny part of me feels like he'd be better off at a rehabilitation center, rather than prison, with his kind and people possibly worse than he is right now. I don't know why I suddenly feel like this, but is it right? Or am I just feeling unnecessarily guilty? Would jail time make him a better person, or the complete opposite? Update number 4. Hey everyone, it's been quite a while since my last update on this story, and I'm finally done with my degree, and yeah, I'm back home now. And yes, I'm applying all I've learned at fashion school to my fashion and design business. My first degree was in biochemistry. I don't quite fancy it. I've never really been interested in sciences. I just took the scholarship because I wanted to get away from home as soon as possible and because I somehow thought it would make my dad a bit proud of me. He loves science. Fashion and design has always been my dream career path, and I'm finally a certified designer. I still make doll clothes, but I've now incorporated other aspects of adult clothing. Things are going well. Alan has 1 more month left in prison. He got 6 months under the condition that he would go to rehabilitation. It seemed fair enough, and for those who thought my decision to not help settle my mother's rent or acknowledge her attempts to wiggle her back into my life was cruel, this one is for y'all. I sold my grandparents' house, yes, the one that they left for my brother, and I found the papers to it and auctioned it off. Part of the money will be going to my business, and the other half will be anonymously donated to charity. I'm not going to let her back into my life because she suddenly feels sorry for all her actions. Crucify me in the comments all you want, but it's not going to happen. She's still the same person, just in a different font. She, too, needs to get some psychological help, if you ask me, and I know I do, and I've started seeing a therapist. We haven't spoken in about 60 days, and she doesn't seem to mind. I think things are much better this way. There are no regrets or resentments. Just peace and good vibes. I've also made up my mind on what my relationship with Alan would be like when he comes back from rehab. I'm cutting him off. That's right. I am cutting him off too. I have no room in my life for people who constantly treat me like dirt for years. Also, I finally got some news about my dad. He called me from El Morro prison in Havana, Cuba. He's serving jail time and he was calling to ask me for some money. I don't even know how he got my number, but a few weeks ago I would have quickly wired him some money, but not now. I'm done with him. I told him I was not going to send him a dime and he should never contact me again, and I feel great. So essentially, this might be my last update on here. I do appreciate everybody who took out the time to express their opinions. Sorry if it did not implement most of the suggestions you gave. I still appreciate the support, though. I think it's important to know that even if your blood is thick, well, water can still wash away blood. You don't have to stay in your toxic family ties just because they're blood.